On today's episode of the Cryptoverse, we're going to do episode 1 of yet another show format that I've come up with, which I'm calling Crypto News Review. So everyone seemed to like episode 1 of Coin versus Coin the other day, and I'm really getting the sense now that these crypto videos, especially in these market conditions, they need to be informative, of course, but they also need to be entertaining. So that's where this format came from, to kind of make that a bit more spicy and entertaining. So what we'll do is we'll look at a bunch of news stories from various sources, and then I'm going to rate them out of 10 in categories such as the quality of the headline, the quality of the article, the impact of the story, and then an overall rating for the article as a whole. So let's begin. Starting with story number 1, which comes from bitcoinist.com. Here's the headline: Gemini passing SOC 2 examination, a step towards Bitcoin ETF approval. First half of the headline doesn't mean anything. SOC 2, what is that? We don't know. Second half is some nice clickbait, a step towards Bitcoin ETF approval rather. Many of us want an ETF approval for Bitcoin, so that point is appealing to that. So I rate the headline 4 out of 10. In terms of the contents of the article, let's have a look here. There's a couple of pertinent points here. In the opening paragraph, it says Gemini Exchange has announced successfully passing this SOC 2 thing, which they believe is a factor in favor of possible approval of their Bitcoin ETF petition. Oh, that's a lot of soft certainty, isn't it? You know, really grasping for the news there, it seems. So minus points for wasting our time on that one. It promises something in the headline and then kind of goes limp all of a sudden by saying they believe it's a factor in favor of a possible. So that's just weak. On the plus side, though, this does make Gemini the world's first cryptocurrency exchange and custodian to demonstrate this level of security compliance. So points for that, for being like reporting on a world first. So on that basis, I give the article contents a 5 out of 10. What about impact? Well, basically a New York exchange has passed a regulatory exam. Too broad, too general, too far away from material impact for us as crypto investors. So 3 out of 10 on the impact front. So total, that brings the overall impact or the overall rating of this article to 4 out of 10. Let's move on to the next one, which comes from Bits Online, Blockchain Institute of Technology Online. So the headline is, know when to fold them dApps. Ethereum cedes ground to EOS, Tron due to gambler migration. So let's take the headline. I think that's an excellent headline. Humor, gambling metaphor. When it says fold them dApps, it sounds like pocket aces or whatever term we use to describe, you know, the hole cards that you have in Texas Hold'em, right? So I like that. And the headline tells you exactly what's happening and why, right? Ethereum cedes some ground to EOS and Tron due to gambler migration. So it tells you exactly what's happening and why. 7 out of 10 on the headline there. In terms of the content, the quality of the article is actually quite high. They give statistics that point out like the metrics themselves from different dApp data sources actually differ. So that was an insight for me. Like dApp.com and dApp Radar, the statistics on number of transactions and number of users and so on, they don't actually agree. So while the trend promised in the headline is true, that gambling apps are moving away from Ethereum towards Tron and EOS type blockchains, the exact numbers, we can't put our finger on it. So they also point out that gambling apps tend to have a lot more transactions just by their nature, which can make usage on these other blockchains that have gambling apps look artificially high. I think that was a point worth mentioning. So the final distinction that they make is that the data sources, the count of the various apps and unique users are not accurate. So because these accounts on Tron and EOS are accounts which aren't necessarily unique individuals, that's also a skewed figure. A lot of these dApp data sources say like 3,000 accounts have used this dApp today. And we're assuming that's 3,000 people, which isn't necessarily the case, right? An account isn't a unique individual. So they also point out that we don't even know if it's 3,000 unique individuals. So that is also a point they made as well. So very concise article, high return on investment in terms of your time reading it. I give that a 7 out of 10 on the contents of the article. In terms of the impact though, could have been higher. You know, a movement away from Ethereum is a trend not an like a mass exodus all of a sudden. It's not because of any major flaw in Ethereum or anything like that. It's just the use cases finding their most obvious and appropriate settling place and where are the apps going to live. It seems like the gambling applications of the world are going to find a more comfortable home on EOS and Tron type blockchains, which have delegated proof of stake, higher transaction throughput, and so on, at least for the time being anyway. So does Ethereum a favor, to be quite honest, because the gambling apps are consuming a lot of network capacity. So if the gambling apps migrate away from Ethereum, that leaves network capacity for more business applications, I suppose. So it does indicate, in terms of impact, a greater adoption of EOS and Tron, though. So the impact score for crypto investors, from my point of view, is a 6 out of 10. So that brings the overall rating for this story, if you average it all out, overall rating 7 out of 10 for this article. Moving on to story number 3. Cointelegraph's turn now. Let's have a look at the headline. Report. New Zealand Cryptopia exchange hack continues. Headline, not bad. If you haven't heard about this story, it kind of gives you everything you need to know. No points for humor or creativity or flair of any kind there. It's just plainly stated. It's a true reflection of what the article details with, though, so no points lost for clickbait. So that's a good thing. 1 point lost for the word report, though, because that caused me to expect a more in-depth article. You think like a report, right? Like a document. If that word were removed, then my expectations wouldn't have been skewed, because then the contents doesn't actually deliver on that expectation of it being a longer report. So 6 out of 10 on the headline. Contents, well, basically hackers are still in control of Cryptopia's Ethereum wallets and then starting to move money around, right? That's basically the story. Etherscan have actually started tagging addresses with warnings so that if you interact with those addresses, it can say, look, this is an address that's involved in the hack, beware. So in that regard, the quality of the content is actually quite high. It's nice, it's subjective, it's fact-based. I'm happy about that. They quote various other sources in the article. That's largely how it's made up, by pulling in lots of third-party sources together into an article. Points for that. I don't detect any personal agenda or bias on the part of the author. Points for that. What's great about this article was that Cointelegraph kind of became invisible when I was reading it. That's a good thing. It's that thing that Jeff Bezos described when he was inventing the Amazon Kindle. He was trying to duplicate the experience of reading a physical book when you get immersed in it and almost the book disappears, right? The edges of the book and the physicality of it disappears. That actually happened to me when I was reading this Cointelegraph article. The article content was so good that I kind of forgot and Cointelegraph drifted into the background. So I think that's excellent. So good return on investment if you invest your time in this. I learned a few things. 8 out of 10 on the contents. What about the impact of this news story? Well, I would say medium to high. Some might call this headline FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt article. Maybe, but they did stick to the facts, to be perfectly fair to Cointelegraph. If crypto is perceived as unsafe and constantly being hacked, well, that's because security is actually still a big issue. Not Cointelegraph's fault, they're just reporting the news, right? No point in sweeping the fact that security remains a huge issue. No point in sweeping that under the carpet, right? If Cointelegraph ignore these facts, well, that's not good journalism, is it? Journalism. Right, so it's going to further irk regulators, in my view, so that's not good, is it, in terms of impact? If the article were breaking the original story, then impact score would be higher, but because it's an update article, I'll give it a 5 out of 10 on impact. So that brings the overall rating for this story to 6 out of 10. Story number 4. We're going to give CoinDesk a chance now. Here's the headline. Swift announces integration with R3 at Paris FinTech Forum. Headline is fine. It's 3 facts glued together. Who, Swift, and the chief, what, announcing integration with R3, and where, the Paris FinTech Forum. Pretty good. So Swift integrating with a blockchain, pretty big deal. There's no hype in that headline. It sticks to the point, so 8 out of 10 for the headline. The contents doesn't end up meeting expectations set by the headline. The headline sounds like it's happening, when the reality is that Swift have only just announced their intention to begin a process of integration. So even there's a quote in the article itself, if I just scroll back to it here, there's a quote here, speaking on stage at Paris FinTech Forum, Swift CEO said, quote, later today we are announcing integration with R3. So in earlier in the day, they announced that later in the day they were going to announce that they intend to integrate with R3. It's another one of those soft certainty things which leaves us a little bit disappointed. So headline sets you up for disappointment, delivers on that disappointment. You think something has actually happened, turns out it's only going to happen. So like, you know, we have integrated with R3. Like a product launch is very different from going on stage and saying, we have begun a project looking at how to integrate Swift with R3. Very different things. One's more impactful than the other. So there's no details of exactly how they're going to integrate Swift with R3 either. So how exactly is this going to improve the Swift service? We can only speculate because there's no detail. So it's reporting on an announcement, right? The article is about as long as it needs to be. It's actually very short. It's like, you know, I'd say it's less than 300 words, but there's no point in going on and on and on about it, right? So I rate the content of the article a 5 out of 10 because it kind of fails to educate the reader on the potential impact, like I'm about to do in the third section here. What's the impact of this story? Potentially big, because Swift have a firm grasp on the international payments market. We all know this, right? Swift are kind of the enemy of cryptocurrencies, right? Many crypto investors are still speculating on coins in the hope that those coins and those networks that they've invested in will become used for international payments and supplant Swift, right? XRP being one of the operative ones. So if Swift do switch to blockchain tech, and then if their service performance rises to match that of the open blockchains that promise to rival them, then it's going to be a lot harder to get those open networks adopted because the incumbent will have the same performance as them. And the average user won't care about open blockchains and things like that. So not impossible, it's going to be harder in terms of impact. So I have to rate the impact of this particular announcement in isolation though. So due to the lack of detail on the impact, I have to give it a 6. So that brings the overall rating for this story to 6 out of 10. Story number 5 then. This is the last one for today. We're going to give Toshi Times a chance now. I've given it a broad range of different news outlets so that the ratings are a bit fairer. So here we go. Here's the article. Headline: how do the two groups that stole $1 billion in crypto cash out? Excellent headline, right? This is a question that I believe many crypto investors want an answer to, including me. You often wonder this, don't you? This is actually alluded to at the end of the Coin Telegraph article about the Cryptopia hack. Let's actually hit back here. Just step back for a second. This last paragraph says, yesterday a report from Chainalysis stated that 2 hacker groups have reportedly stolen $1 billion in cryptocurrency. So this is the final paragraph of that article, but Toshi Times goes into it as an entire article. So it holds the promise of real learning this because it promises to answer this question. It promises to give us some insight into how the bad guys work. That's kind of interesting, right? 8 out of 10 for that headline. What about the contents of this article? It's absolutely excellent. Excellent. Really rich information in this article. You know, statistics, $1 billion stolen in the last few years. On average, $90 million is stolen in an exchange hack. Average of 90 million. These two groups, they're basically being dubbed Alpha and Beta, that have bagged the vast majority of this money. It's a highly lucrative private enterprise, this stuff. And they're clearly, these people are smart, right? They're really smart people. And why are they doing this? Well, because they're earning more by hacking the exchanges and busting their security than they could possibly ever dream to earn by going legit as a white hat security consultant, right? Their earnings are going to be an absolute fraction of this. So the incentives to be criminal are so much higher, but of course the risks are so much higher. So check this out. It also reports that these groups, these hacker groups, they wait on average 112 days after the hack before attempting to launder the stolen funds. So they boil the strategy down. They call it complexity and patience are the two keys that the bad guys employ to get away with these things, so and make it harder to get caught. So one group, it says, waited 2 years after a hack to move the funds, and when they do move them, they periodically pause and just leave the funds there so that everyone sort of forgets and turns their attention away from it, and then they move it again, right? This is very, very patient stuff. So I personally felt a very high return on the time that I invested reading this article, so the content for me gets an 8 out of 10. what's the impact? Well, the story is more educational than anything. There's no real tangible impact on our crypto investments. The actual hacks, maybe, which we dealt with earlier on, but the reporting of the behind the scenes and how they launder the money, not really. Has a high impact on privacy coins, I would say, though, because privacy coins are good for us, and as they get more adoption, it's also good for the bad guys, though, because we can remain private, but so can they. And these criminal investigations into exchange hacks, they largely rely on, scraping information from public blockchains and then analyzing them. Chainalysis, the company, being a prime example. So, kind of tough choice with the privacy coins, right? Do we use them and benefit from them and let the bad guys benefit from them, or do we outlaw them so that we can catch them, but then compromise our own privacy? So anyway, overall impact rating for this article, I'll give it a 5 out of 10. That brings the total overall score for this article to 7 out of 10. So that leaves 2 winners for today. 2 winners are the Bits Online article, which was the Know When to Fold Them dApps, and which got 7 out of 10 overall, and the Toshi Times article about what do criminals do with all the stolen crypto. So if you are short on time today and you only want to read a couple of articles, I would say those are the 2 that will give you the greatest return on investment of your time. But that is all I've got for you today. If you like this episode, go ahead, hit that like button. If you really liked it, hit that subscribe button. And if you would like to keep me around, if you would like me to continue producing content on Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, and blockchains, if you found it valuable, and if you would like to incentivize me to continue doing it, then please support the show. You can head on over to thecryptoverse.show, click on the big blue button in the top right corner. That'll take you through to Patreon, where you can become a patron, support the show, and get a whole bunch of bonuses. Alternatively, you can sign up to the online school. Cryptoasset.school is the URL. This is my online school, Cryptoversity. You can sign up for a low monthly fee, get access to all my cryptocurrency courses, and not only will you get access to all the courses and the private chat group, but it'll also help to fund and subsidize the production of this content so that everyone can benefit from it. Other than that, though, I will be back with the next episode of the Cryptoverse. So until then, it's me, Chris Coney, saying bye for now.